She scrubbed until the water ran pink, but the dirt she was trying to wash off wasn't on her skin. The creek ran shallow this time of year, barely 3 inches over the rocks. Kate Brennan knelt in it anyway, bare feet buried in silt, sleeves rolled down to her wrists despite the 108-degree heat. The lye soap in her hand had worn to a sliver, edges smooth from use. She dragged it across her knuckles again, raw, red, the color of something that wouldn't heal. A truck engine growled somewhere on the highway, maybe 2 miles off. She froze, water dripping from her fingers, and looked toward the sound. Nothing. Just heat shimmer and creosote bush and the flat beige forever of Arizona. She stood, walked back toward the collapsed adobe she'd been squatting in for 6 months. The soap slipped from her grip and landed in the dust. She didn't pick it up. Please, she whispered to no one. The desert didn't answer. Boone Rutherford didn't believe in signs from God, but when he saw her collapse on the shoulder of Highway 86, he pulled over anyway. He'd been heading into Bellwood for fence wire when he spotted her. Small figure in the heat shimmer, walking the white line, like it was the only thing keeping her vertical. No hat, no water bottle. Long sleeves buttoned to the wrists. Stupid, he thought. Then she dropped. He was past her before his foot hit the brake. The Ford skidded gravel. In the rear view, she wasn't moving. 3 seconds. That's how long he sat there, engine idling, watching a woman face down on asphalt in 110-degree heat while his hands stayed locked on the wheel. Tucson. The bar, the car, her screaming. Christ, he threw it in reverse. By the time he reached her, she was trying to crawl. Palms scraped raw on the road, legs folding under her like a newborn calf. She made it 2 feet before she collapsed again. Hey. He stayed in the truck bed 15 feet back. Hey, you're gonna cook out here. She lifted her head, saw him, tried to scramble away. Don't. Her voice cracked on the word. Don't. Easy. He raised both hands, stepped down slow. Just water, that's all. He grabbed the orange igloo jug from behind the cab, twisted the cap, and set it in the dirt halfway between them. Then he backed up to the tailgate and sat. Nearest shade's 8 miles, he said. You won't make it. She was on her hands and knees now, staring at the jug like it might be a trap. Her hair hung in strings across her face. Beneath it, her skin had gone the color of old newspaper, gray-white, wrong. I'm fine, she said. That so? The sun hammered down. A semi blasted past doing 70, sucking dust into a rooster tail. She flinched at the sound, but didn't move toward the water. Boone pulled his hat brim lower, waited. After a minute, she crawled forward and grabbed the jug. Drank half of it in 4 long pulls, water spilling down her chin, darkening the collar of her shirt. When she finally stopped, she was shaking. You got a name? He asked. She didn't answer. Just set the jug down and tried to stand, made it halfway before her knees buckled. He was off the tailgate before she hit the ground, catching her elbow. She jerked back so hard she nearly fell again. Jesus, I'm not... He let go, held his hands up. I'm not going to hurt you. I know. But the way she said it meant she didn't. Up close, he could see the details she'd been hiding. Purple-yellow bruise on her left wrist, ring finger bent wrong like it had been broken and set badly, the way her eyes wouldn't meet his for more than half a second. In the sleeves, long cotton in August, covering something. You staying at the old Chavez place? He asked. She went still. Pump's broke, he said. Saw it last month when I was checking fence line. Could fix it if you're there. Why? 'Cause it's broke. No. She looked at him then. Really looked. Why would you help me? He didn't have an answer that made sense. So he told the truth adjacent to it. Ranch is 8 miles north. You need work? I got fence that needs mending. Pays cash. I can't. Didn't ask if you could. Asked if you need it. A dust devil spun itself across the highway. Small and mean. She watched it like she was deciding something. Finally. I ain't asking for nothing. I know. And I can't do anything except fence work, he said. That's all. He left her the rest of the water in a protein bar from the glove box. Told her the ranch was the second mailbox past mile marker 14 if she changed her mind. Then he climbed back in the truck and drove away without looking back. It wasn't until he hit the Bellwood town limit that his hands stopped shaking. 12 years. 12 goddamn years since Tucson, since that parking lot behind Lucky's Bar, since he'd stood there with Tommy Vance and Ray Cordero, all of them drunk and stupid and 29, watching a man drag a woman toward a car while she fought and screamed. Lovers fight, Tommy had said, laughing. None of our business, Ray had said. And Boone hadn't said anything at all, just finished his beer and went home. They found her body the next morning, 40 miles out in the desert, beaten, left to die in the heat like an animal. He'd carried it ever since. The silence, the choice to walk away, Not noble, not decent, just a coward who'd decided his comfort mattered more than her life. And now here was another woman, alone on a highway in killing heat, and he'd almost done it again. Almost driven past, almost chosen easy over right. He wasn't helping her to be good. He was helping her because if he didn't, the weight would finally crush him. In the rearview mirror, the road shimmered empty. But he knew she was back there, sitting in the dust, trying to decide if she could trust a stranger's kindness. He hoped she could. He wasn't sure he could trust it himself. The pump at the Chavez place had been broken for 3 years. Boone showed up the next morning with tools and no explanation. He pulled up just after dawn, when the air still held onto the night's coolness and the sky was going from purple to pale. The adobe sat against a low ridge of desert hills. Half its roof collapsed, front door hanging crooked on leather hinges. Palo Verde trees grew up through what used to be the back porch. A light was on inside. Candle, maybe, or a camping lantern. He killed the engine and waited. Counted to 30. Then he stepped out slow, left the door open so she could hear he wasn't trying to sneak, and called toward his house. "It's Boone, from yesterday. Brought tools for that pump." Nothing. Just the morning sounds, doves, a distant rooster, wind moving through the creosote. He grabbed his toolbox from the bed and walked to where the old hand pump stood, 20 feet from the house. The handle was seized, red with rust. The pipe below it had cracked winters ago when somebody didn't drain it right. Whole thing would need new washers, new pipe, maybe a new cylinder if the old one was shot. He set the toolbox down and went to work. The door opened behind him. He didn't turn around. "I didn't ask you to." Her voice, rough from sleep. "Pump's broke." He fitted a wrench to the first bolt. "Can't get water without it. I use the creek. Creek's a 6-mile round trip." Silence. Then the door hinges creaked. Not closing, just settling. She was standing there, watching. He worked the bolt loose, moved to the next one. The sun was climbing now, starting to bite, sweat already prickling his neck. "You don't have to do this," she said. "I know. Then why?" "Needs doing." He pulled the pump head off, set it aside, and peered down into the pipe. Dry as bone. He'd need to pull the whole assembly, check the cylinder, replace the leathers. Hours work, maybe 2. Behind him, the door closed. A minute later, it opened again. She came down off the porch, moving like somebody trying not to take up space, and sat on the bottom step with her arms wrapped around her knees, watching. He worked. She watched. Neither of them spoke. By the time he had the cylinder out, inspecting the valve, the sun was mean and the temperature was pushing 90. He straightened, wiped his hands on his jeans, and walked to the truck for the new parts he'd brought. When he came back, she was still there. "How much?" she asked. "For what?" "Parts, labor. Well, it didn't charge you yet." "But you're gonna." He looked at her then, really looked. She'd pulled her hair back in a ponytail, but pieces had escaped and stuck to her neck. Same long sleeves, same faded jeans with holes at the knees. She met his eyes for maybe 2 seconds before looking away. "Fence work," he said. "You show up, we're square." "I don't," she stopped, started again. "I can't do much. I'm not strong, I don't know anything about ranching." "You know how to use a hammer?" "Yeah." Then you know enough." It took another 40 minutes to get the pump rebuilt and primed. When he finally worked the handle and water came up, cold and clean from 60 feet down, she stood up from the step. He pumped it 3 more times, letting it run clear, then stepped back. "All yours." She came forward slow, like she thought it might be a trick, put her hand on the handle, pumped once. Water splashed into the dust, darkening the dirt to black. Something in her face changed. Not quite a smile, but close. "It works," she said. "Yeah." She pumped it again. Filled her cupped hands and drank, water spilling down her chin, soaking the front of her shirt. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked away. Ranch is the second mailbox past mile marker 14. Mornings are cooler, show up whenever. He was loading the toolbox back in the truck when she spoke again. "Boone?" He turned. "Why are you doing this?" Not suspicious this time, just asking. He thought about Tucson, the bar, the woman's screams, the choice he'd made to walk away. "Ranch needs work," he said. "And you look like you could use a place that's not here." Not the truth, but not a lie either. He climbed in the truck, started it up. Before he pulled away, he leaned out the window. "Maria Santos runs the gas station in town. She's good people. If you need anything before tomorrow, tell her I sent you." He didn't wait for an answer, just drove off, dust billowing behind him. In the rearview mirror, Kate stood by the pump, one hand still on the handle, watching him go. On the passenger seat was a mason jar wrapped in foil. Maria's tamales. He'd meant to leave them on the porch rail, but forgot. He kept driving. 3 miles down the road, he stopped, turned around, and went back. She was inside when he pulled up. He left the jar on the rail, weighted down with a rock so the wind wouldn't take it, and drove away before she could come out and refuse it. This time, he didn't look back. That evening, after the sun dropped and the temperature fell to something bearable, Kate unwrapped the foil. 6 tamales, still warm, red chile, the smell of them filling the small room. She ate one standing at the window, then another, then a third, eating so fast she barely tasted them, eating like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be full. When they were gone, she sat on the floor with the empty jar in her lap and cried. Not because of the food, because someone had thought to bring it, because someone had fixed her pump and left her tamales and asked for nothing, and she didn't know how to hold that without breaking. She went to the sink, the one inside, fed by the pipe Boone had connected, and turned the tap. Water came out. Cold and clean and real, she washed her hands, scrubbed them with the soap sliver she'd retrieved from the creek. Once, twice, 3 times, until her knuckles were red and the soap slipped from her fingers. She caught it before it hit the drain, looked at it, the white nub worn almost to nothing. 6 months. 6 months she'd been scrubbing, trying to wash away what happened in the back room of the dusty Rose Bar, trying to wash away Cole Hadley's hands, trying to wash away her mother's voice, saying, "What did you expect? Dress like that?" The soap wouldn't wash any of it away. She set it on the windowsill and turned off the tap. Outside, the desert was going dark. Coyotes yipped somewhere in the hills. The stars were coming out, hard and bright and indifferent. She lay down on the sleeping bag she'd borrowed from Maria, pulled the thin blanket up to her chin, and stared at the ceiling. Don't trust him, she thought. Don't trust anyone. They all want something. But the pump worked, and the tamales were gone. And tomorrow, if she was brave enough, she could walk to his ranch and mend fence and earn money, and maybe start to believe she wasn't just something broken and dirty and used up. She fell asleep with her hands curled against her chest, still damp from washing. The empty jar sat on the floor beside her, catching moonlight. She didn't throw it away. She showed up at his ranch 3 days later, hands shoved in her pockets, saying she'd do the fence work if the offer still stood. The ranch sat in a shallow valley where the desert gave way to grassland, sparse and struggling, but green enough to keep cattle alive. The house was old adobe, thick-walled and low, with a corrugated metal roof and a porch that wrapped 3 sides. Outbuildings scattered behind it, barn, equipment shed, a bunkhouse nobody used anymore. Boone was loading fence posts when her shadow crossed his boots. "Offer still good?" she asked. He looked up. She'd walked the 8 miles in the heat. He could see it in the dust on her jeans, the sweat darkening her collar. But she was standing straight, meeting his eyes for almost 3 full seconds before looking away. "Yeah," he said. "You eat breakfast?" "I'm fine." "That ain't what I asked." She didn't answer. He grabbed his work gloves from the tailgate and handed them to her. "North pasture fence. Posts are loose, wires sagging. You know how to use a come-along?" "No." "I'll show you." And they worked the fence line for 4 hours, him teaching, her learning quick and quiet. She didn't talk much, but she listened hard and her hands were steady. When they broke for lunch, sandwiches he'd made that morning, kept cool in the truck, she ate like she hadn't seen food in days. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. "Yesterday." "Before that." She looked at him, didn't answer. He went inside and came back with a grocery bag. Bread, peanut butter, canned soup, crackers, apples. Set it on the tailgate. "Take it when you leave." "I can't. Ain't charity. It's wages." You said fence work was wages." "Changed my mind." He picked up his hammer. "You want the food or not?" She stared at the bag like it might disappear, finally nodded. They went back to work. Mid-afternoon, when the heat peaked and even the cattle had stopped moving, Boone called it. Told her to wash up at the spigot behind the barn while he put tools away. He was coiling wire when he saw it. The spigot drained into a concrete sink, old and stained, set against the barn's back wall. She was bent over it, scrubbing her hands with something small and white. The soap. That same sliver he'd seen at the creek, worn down to almost nothing now. But she was working it across her knuckles like she was trying to scrub through to bone. Once, twice, 3 times. Her hands were already red. He stopped 10 feet back, watching. She rinsed. Looked at her hands. Scrubbed again. Something in his chest tightened. He'd seen this before, not in person, but in the manuals they'd handed out at the VA when Tommy Vance came back from Desert Storm, with hands he couldn't keep clean, no matter how many times he washed them. Trauma response, the counselor had called it, physical manifestation of psychological contamination. Kate wasn't washing off dirt. She was washing off memory. He walked to the shed, made noise with the door so she'd hear him coming. By the time he rounded the corner, she'd tucked the soap into her pocket and was drying her hands on her jeans. "Water's good here," he said, like he hadn't seen anything. "Well's 180 feet, stays cold." "Yeah." Her voice was tight. He went to the spigot, filled his canteen, drank half, set the soap dish, empty except for dust, on the sink edge, and walked away. When he came back 10 minutes later with the grocery bag, the soap was sitting on the dish. She hadn't put it back in her pocket. He didn't mention it. They sat on the porch as the sun dropped, her in the old wooden chair his wife used to favor, him on the steps with his back against the post. The light was going gold and long, stretching their shadows across the yard. "How long you been at the Chavez place?" he asked. 6 months, about. "Where'd you come from before that?" She was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Here. Bellwood. Born at the county hospital, raised on 3rd Street. She picked at a splinter in the chair arm. Left when I was 18, came back last February." "Why come back?" "Nowhere else to go." He let that sit, watched a hawk circle over the north pasture, riding thermals. "You got family here?" he asked. "Had a mother. She doesn't claim me anymore." The way she said it, flat, factual, hit harder than if she'd cried. "I'm sorry," he said. She shrugged. "People choose what they want to believe." "That don't make it right." "No." She looked at him. "But it makes it real." The hawk dove, came up empty, circled higher. "Why'd you stay out here?" she asked. "Ranch this far from town. You could be closer in, easier. Got tired of people." "Yeah." Almost a smile. "Me too." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just two people who'd learned that quiet was safer than words. Gravel crunched in the drive. Boone looked up. A truck was pulling in, old Chevy Rosary hanging from the rearview mirror. "That's Maria," he said. Kate stood fast, started toward the steps like she was about to run. "Easy," Boone said. "She's good people, I told you." "I know, She stopped. "People see me with you, they'll let 'em." The truck parked beside the barn. Maria Santos climbed out carrying a foil-covered dish, saw them on the porch, and smiled. "Boone Rutherford," she called. "You feeding this girl or working her to death?" Maria climbed the porch steps, set the dish on the railing, and looked at Kate for a long moment. "Mija," she said softly. "You're too thin." Kate's jaw tightened. "I'm fine. That's what they all say." But Maria unwrapped the foil. Enchiladas, red chili, the smell making Boone's stomach growl. "You eaten today?" "She's been working fence since 7, Boone said. "I fed her lunch." "Oh, one sandwich isn't enough." Maria pushed the dish toward Kate. "Eat. I'll make coffee." She disappeared inside like she owned the place. Boone heard cupboards opening, the tap running, his old percolator clanking on the stove. Kate stood frozen, staring at the enchiladas. "Go on," Boone said. "She'll be insulted if you don't." "I can't just—" "You can." Maria returned with 3 plates and forks, served them all without asking, then sat on the porch rail and ate standing up like she had somewhere else to be. "You staying at the Chavez place?" she asked Kate. "Yes, ma'am." "Pump working now?" Kate glanced at Boone. "Yes, ma'am. He fixed it." "Good." Maria finished her enchilada in 4 bites. "Mija, if you need a place, I got a room above the station. Empty since my daughter left. You're welcome to it." Kate set her fork down. "Why would you—" "Because I know the signs." The air went still. Maria looked at Kate with eyes that had seen this before, the long sleeves in summer, the way she held herself small, the scrubbed raw hands. "Mi hija," she said quietly. "My daughter. She went through the same thing 15 years ago? Different man, same town, same silence?" Kate's breath caught. "I didn't protect her," Maria continued. "I told her to stay quiet, not make trouble, that it would ruin us if she spoke up, so she left. 18 years old, and she left, and I haven't seen her since." Her voice cracked. "So when I see another girl with that look, I don't stay quiet anymore." "You—" Kate's hands were shaking. "You believe me?" "Si, mija, I believe you." It was the first time in 6 months anyone had said those words. Kate stood fast, stumbled down the steps, walked 10 feet into the yard, and stopped with her back to them. Shoulders heaving, Maria started to follow, but Boone touched her arm, shook his head. "Let her breathe," he said. They sat in silence while Kate cried in the yard, hands pressed to her face, everything she'd been holding finally breaking loose. After a while, Maria said quietly, "You're a good man, Boone Rutherford." "No, I'm not." You're helping her." "That don't make me good." Maria studied him. "What does it make you?" "Trying." Maria left after sunset, pressing her phone number into Kate's hand and making her promise to call if she needed anything. "Anything," she repeated. When the taillights disappeared down the drive, Kate came back to the porch. Her eyes were red, but her face was calmer. "I should go," she said. "It's 8 miles in the dark." "I've walked it before." I know. Boone stood, grabbed his keys. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know. They drove in silence, windows down, night air pouring through the cab. The radio was broken, so there was just the engine and the road and the darkness pressing against the headlights. Halfway there, she spoke. The town thinks I'm... She stopped. Started again. They think I lied about what happened. What do you think? I don't know anymore. Her voice was small. Maybe they're right. Maybe I... Stop. She looked at him. Don't matter what they think, he said. What matters is the truth. But if nobody believes the truth, then what's the point? The point is you're still standing. He kept his eyes on the road. That's more than most people could do. She was quiet the rest of the way. When he pulled up to the adobe, she grabbed the grocery bag from the floor and opened the door. Boone? Yeah. Why are you doing this? Really? He thought about lying. Thought about saying something easy. Decided she deserved better. Because I didn't help someone once, he said, and I gotta live with that every day. So I'm helping you. Because maybe it'll balance the scales a little. Maybe it won't, but I gotta try. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded, climbed out, and walked to the house. He waited until her light came on inside before he drove away. 3 days later, Wade Driscoll cornered him at the feed store. Boone. Wade's voice was friendly, but his eyes weren't. Heard you got some help out at the ranch. Yeah. And that girl, the one who accused Cole. Boone loaded a salt lick onto his cart. She's got a name. Well, I know her name. Wade smiled, thin and cold. I'm just saying, people are talking. Wondering if you know what you're getting into. I know exactly what I'm doing. Do you? Wade lowered his voice. She's trouble, Boone. That whole situation with Cole, it was messy. She was drunk, making accusations, and Cole's a good boy. You hiring her, it sends a message. What message is that? That you believe her over him. Boone looked at Wade for 3 full seconds. That's exactly the message I'm sending. He pushed the cart toward checkout, leaving Wade standing in the aisle. By the time he got home, his phone was ringing. Tommy Vance, Ray Cordero, even the pastor from First Baptist, all of them with the same concerned tone, the same careful words. You sure you know what you're doing? People are worried. Maybe you should reconsider. He unplugged the phone and went to bed. Outside, the desert was quiet. Inside, the reckoning was just beginning. Wade Driscoll showed up at the ranch on Sunday morning with half the church deacon board and a look that said this wasn't a friendly visit. Boone was checking water troughs when he heard the vehicles. 3 trucks pulled into the drive slow and deliberate, parking side by side like a barricade. Wade climbed out first, dressed in his Sunday suit despite the heat. Behind him came Earl Hutchins, Dale Porter, and Wade's nephew by marriage, Cole Hadley. The kid was 23, clean-cut, wearing a First Baptist polo shirt like it was armor. Boone set down the wrench and walked toward them. Kate was in the barn, mucking stalls. He could see her through the open door, frozen, pitchfork in hand. Boone. Wade's voice was friendly as a snake. Hope we're not interrupting. What do you want, Wade? Just wanted to talk, man to man. Wade gestured to the others. We're concerned. About you, about this situation you've gotten yourself into. What situation's that? That girl. Wade nodded toward the barn. The one working here. She's got a name. I know her name. Wade's smile went thin. Catherine Brennan. Born and raised right here in Bellwood. Went away for a few years, came back last winter making all kinds of accusations. And that's so. Now, Boone, we understand you're trying to help. That's admirable. But you need to know what you're dealing with. Wade pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This is the police report from last February. Says she was highly intoxicated. Says she couldn't keep her story straight. Says there were no witnesses to corroborate her claims. Cole spoke up, voice tight. She was all over me at the bar. Everyone saw it. Then when things didn't go how she wanted, she made up. That's enough, Cole, Wade said. But his eyes were pleased. He turned back to Boone. My point is, this girl has a history. Drinking, men causing trouble. And now she's here, on your property, and people are talking. Let them talk. They're saying you believe her over Cole, over a good Christian boy whose family's been in this town 4 generations. I do believe her. The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Earl Hutchins shifted his weight. Boone, you're making a mistake. Cole's telling the truth. She's just some girl who got drunk and regretted it the next morning. She accused me of rape, Cole said, voice rising. And it's a lie. Ask anyone who was there. Ask her own mother. Even she said the girl was out of control, dressed like... Careful. Boone's voice dropped low. Cole shut his mouth. Wade stepped forward. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here as Christian men trying to guide you back to the right path. You're a respected member of this community, Boone. Your family built this ranch. People look up to you. But if you keep associating with her, if you keep taking her side, he trailed off, let the threat sit. Then what? Then people will wonder about you. They'll wonder why you're so determined to believe a known liar over an upstanding young man. They'll wonder what your real motivations are, keeping her out here, alone, day after day. And the implication was clear. They were saying he was sleeping with her, or planning to. That his help had conditions. Boone felt something cold settle in his chest. "You done?" he asked. "We're trying to help you." By calling her a liar? By defending him? Boone pointed at Cole. "You want to know why I believe her? Because I've seen what happened to girls like her. I've seen how towns like this protect boys like him. And I've seen the bodies they leave behind when nobody gives a damn." Dale spoke up. "That's out of line, Boone." "No. What's out of line is you four showing up here on a Sunday morning to run her off because she had the nerve to tell the truth." "It's not truth," Cole said. "It's a lie. And I said that's enough." Wade's expression hardened. "We're Christian folk, Boone. We look after our own. But some people, they bring trouble. They bring shame. And if you choose to stand with her, you're choosing to stand against this community. Against everything decent." "Then I guess that's what I'm choosing." Wade nodded slowly. "I'm sorry to hear that. I truly am." He turned to the others. "Gentlemen, we tried." They walked back to their trucks. Before climbing in, Wade called back, "You won't be welcome at church anymore, Boone. Feed store might not serve you. People have a right to choose who they do business with. Think about that." The trucks pulled out, leaving dust hanging in the air. Boone stood in the yard, hands shaking with rage he couldn't release. Behind him, a sound, sharp intake of breath. He turned. Kate stood in the barn doorway, face white as bone. "You heard," he said. She nodded. "Don't listen to—" "They're right." Her voice was flat. "You shouldn't have done that. Kate, now they'll come for you too. Now they'll destroy everything you have because of me." "I don't care." "Well, you should." She was shaking now, hands clenched at her sides. "You should have just let me leave. You should have stayed out of it like everyone else." "I'm not everyone else." "No, you're just stupid." She laughed, bitter and broken. "Stupid enough to help me. Stupid enough to think it would matter." "It does matter. Undoes it? Does it matter that I told the truth, that I reported it, that I did everything right?" Her voice was climbing. "Because they didn't believe me then, and they don't believe me now, and they never will. So what's the point? What's the goddamn point of any of it? The point is, I was drunk." And she was crying now, the words tumbling out. "I was drunk, and I wore a short dress, and I laughed at his jokes, and maybe I gave him the wrong idea. Maybe I—" "Stop it. Maybe they're right. Maybe I wanted it. Maybe I said stop. I'm dirty." She screamed it, voice breaking. "That's why no one believes me. That's why my own mother won't look at me. Because I'm dirty, and I'm ruined, and I bring shame to everyone who tries to help me." She turned and ran. Across the yard, past the barn toward the road. "Kate, wait." But she was already gone, running flat out in the heat, dust rising behind her. He started after her, made it 10 steps before stopping. If he chased her, it would prove their point, that he wanted something from her, that his help had conditions. He couldn't chase her. He had to let her go. An hour later, he drove to the Chavez place. The door was locked. He knocked, called her name. Nothing. He went around back to where the pump stood. The concrete sink was dry, but something sat on the edge. The soap, that sliver she'd carried everywhere, worn down to almost nothing. She'd left it behind. He picked it up. The white surface was still damp, like she'd used it recently. Used it hard. He could see pink in the water stains on the concrete. She'd scrubbed until she bled. The soap felt like a confession in his hand. Like every time she'd tried to wash away the thing that wouldn't come clean. Like every moment she'd blamed herself for what someone else had done to her. He set it back on the sink edge and walked to the door. "Kate," he called. "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me." Silence. "They're wrong," he said to the closed door. "About you. About what happened. They're wrong, and I need you to know that." Still nothing. "I'm not leaving food this time," he said, "or fixing anything. I'm just telling you the truth. You're not what they say. You never were." He waited. The door didn't open. He walked back to his truck, climbed in, and sat there for 5 minutes, hoping she'd come out. She didn't. He drove home as the sun climbed toward noon, and for the first time in 12 years, he understood exactly how that woman in Tucson must have felt. Alone, blamed, left to die by people who'd rather look away than see. The difference was, this time, he wasn't walking away. even if Kate thought he should. Even if she ran, he wasn't walking away. For 2 days, Kate didn't come to the ranch. On the third day, Maria found a note taped to the gas station door that said, "Thank you for believing me. I'm sorry." Boone knew something was wrong when he saw the fence section, half finished. 3 posts reset, wire strung between them, the rest left undone. Her work gloves sat on the middle post. Fingers curled like she'd just pulled them off. He stood there in this morning heat, staring at those gloves. She'd been wearing them Friday, working quiet and steady, not talking much but focused. She'd asked him about corner bracing, listened hard to his answer, nodded. When she left that evening, she'd said, "See you Monday," and he'd believed her. That was before Wade showed up Sunday morning, before she ran, before he'd found the soap and called through her locked door and drove away like a coward. Monday she hadn't come. He'd told himself she needed space. Tuesday, when she didn't show, he'd driven to the adobe at noon. The door was still locked, but this time there was no sound from inside, no shadow moving behind the curtain. "Kate," he'd called. "You don't have to work. I just need to know you're okay." Nothing. He'd left a bag of groceries on the porch and gone home. Now it was Wednesday, and the gloves were here, and she wasn't, and something in his gut said this was different. He grabbed the gloves, still damp with yesterday's sweat, and drove to the adobe. The door was open, not kicked in or broken, just open, like she'd left in a hurry and didn't care enough to close it behind her. Inside, the place was empty. Not just empty of her, empty, swept clean. The sleeping bag folded in the corner, the camping lantern sitting on the windowsill, battery dead. The mason jar from Maria's tamales washed and dried and placed upside down on the counter. Everything in order, everything left behind. He checked the sink. The soap was gone. His chest tightened. He searched the 2 rooms, the collapsed back porch, the area around the pump. No note. No sign of where she'd gone, just the swept floor and the open door and the silence. He got back in the truck and drove straight to Maria's. The gas station sat at the edge of town. 2 pumps and a small store with a hand-painted sign that said Santos Gas and Grocery in sun-faded letters. Maria's old Chevy was parked out front. Boone pulled in too fast, gravel spraying. Maria was inside, ringing up a customer, Mrs. Pacheco, from the church, who looked at Boone and then looked away, quick and deliberate. He waited while Maria made change, while Mrs. Pacheco took her bag and left without making eye contact. The bell over the door chimed. "She's gone," Maria said before he could speak. "When?" "Found this yesterday morning." Maria pulled a piece of paper from under the counter, unfolded it. Notebook paper, the kind kids use in school. The handwriting was cramped, pressed hard like she'd been crying while she wrote. "Thank you for believing me. I'm sorry I couldn't stay clean. Tell Boone I'm sorry for the trouble. Tell him he was right. I'm still standing, but maybe not for much longer. I'm going where people go when they've given up." The words hit him like fists. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "I called her mother," Maria said. Her voice was shaking. Asked if Kate had come home. You know what she said? She said, "I don't have a daughter," and hung up. Boone read the note again. "Where people go when they've given up. The desert. How long's she been gone?" "I don't know. The note was here when I opened at 6 yesterday. Could have been there all night. 36 hours, maybe more. In this heat, without water. I'm going to look for her," he said. "Where?" "Old mining roads, washes. Anywhere she could walk to from the Chavez place." He was already moving toward the door. "Boone." Maria's voice stopped him. "What if you don't find her?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. What if she doesn't want to be found? "Then I'll find her anyway." He was halfway to the truck when he heard the voices. 3 men sat outside the diner across the street. Dale Porter, Earl Hutchins, and a younger guy Boone didn't recognize. They were drinking coffee, watching him. When they saw him looking, Dale raised his cup in mock salute. Earl called over, "Heard your girl finally left? Smart of her." Boone's hands curled into fist. "Guess she figured out you weren't worth the trouble," Dale said, grinning. The young guy laughed. Boone started across the street, Maria's voice behind him. "Don't, mija, don't." But he was already moving. He stopped 3 feet from their table. "Say that again," he said quietly. Dale's grin widened. "I said she finally got smart and left. Can't blame her. What kind of man hires a girl like that anyway? Everyone knows what you were." Boone grabbed Dale's collar, jerked him half out of his chair. "Whoa, hey." Earl stood up fast. "You don't know a goddamn thing about her," Boone said, voice low and dangerous. "You don't know what she's been through. You don't know what your town did to her. Let him go, Boone." Earl's hand was on his shoulder. "Your town chose a rapist over her. Your town called her a liar. Your town ran her off." He shoved Dale back into his chair. "And if something happens to her out there, that's on you. All of you." He turned and walked back to the truck while they cursed behind him. Maria was standing by the driver's door, crying. "I should have done this 15 years ago." she said. For me, hee-ha. I should have believed her. I should have fought for her. You're fighting now. It's too late. No. He climbed in the truck, started it. It's not too late until we stop trying. He drove north, toward the desert, while Maria stood in the gas station parking lot and prayed to a god she wasn't sure was listening. The old mining road ran 12 miles into the hills before it gave up and became wash. Boone drove it slow, windows down, watching both sides for any sign. Footprints, disturbed brush, fabric caught on mesquite. Nothing. He tried the Yarnell wash next. Dry as bone, rocks smooth from ancient floods, a place people went to be alone or to die. He found her tracks a mile in. Boot prints, small, following the wash bottom toward the high country. Recent, maybe yesterday, maybe the night before. The edges were still sharp where the desert varnish hadn't settled. He followed them on foot, leaving the truck behind. The wash narrowed. Rock walls rose on both sides, trapping heat like an oven. The temperature had to be pushing 115, without water, without shade. The tracks veered right, up a side channel. He climbed after them, boots sliding on loose shale, thorns catching his jeans. At the top, the land opened into a flat pan surrounded by low hills. No shade, no water, nothing but creosote and rock and heat shimmer that made the air look liquid. The tracks stopped, just stopped. In the middle of nothing, like she'd been lifted into the sky. He turned a slow circle, scanning. There, 20 yards to the north, a dark shape against the rocks. His heart seized. He ran. It was her backpack. The small canvas one she'd carried to the ranch, now empty, except for the note she'd meant to leave, but hadn't. Inside, written on the back of Maria's phone number, I tried to wash it off, but it won't come clean. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The soap was there too. That sliver worn down to almost nothing, sitting in the bottom of the pack like a confession. She'd brought it with her, planning one last wash, one last attempt to scrub away the shame before... No. The word came out strangled. No, no, no. He searched the area, calling her name, hearing it echo off the rocks, and come back empty. He climbed the nearest hill, scanned 360 degrees, nothing. No body, no sign, no... Wait, there. A quarter-mile east, near a stand of Palo Verde. Something light-colored against the green. He ran. His legs gave out halfway there. He went down hard on his knees, rocks cutting through denim, and stayed there in the dirt, trying to breathe. 12 years. 12 years he'd carried it, and now it was happening again. Another woman alone in the desert. Another woman he'd failed to save. The memory came up like bile. June 15th, 2013, Tucson. Lucky's Bar on the south side. The kind of place that served anyone who had cash and didn't ask questions. He'd been there with Tommy Vance and Ray Cordero, celebrating Tommy's discharge from the Army, all of them 6 beers deep and feeling immortal. They'd stumbled out around midnight to find the parking lot mostly empty. A few cars, broken streetlight, moths circling the working ones, and a woman, screaming. She was maybe 30, in a dress and heels, fighting a man twice her size. He had her by the arm, dragging her toward a white pickup truck. She was hitting him, clawing at his face, yelling, let go, someone help. Boone had stopped, looked, seen it clear as day. Tommy had laughed. Lovers' quarrel. Ray had said, none of our business, man. Let's go. And in Boone had stood there for 5 full seconds, watching her kick and scream and beg, and then he'd turned around and walked away, got in Tommy's car and went home. Told himself it wasn't his problem, told himself she was probably fine, told himself interfering would just make it worse. The next morning, the news. Woman found dead near 3 Points. Angelina Ruiz, 32, mother of 2, police seeking information. They'd beaten her, broken her ribs, her jaw, her spirit, then driven her 40 miles out and left her in the desert to die alone while the sun came up. She'd lived for hours, the autopsy said hours, crawling toward the road, crying for help that never came. He could have stopped it. 5 seconds earlier, one word, one action, he could have stopped all of it. Instead, he'd chosen easy over right, comfort over courage, his own safety over her life. And she'd died for it. He'd never told anyone, never confessed, just carried it like a stone in his chest, getting heavier every year, until the weight made it hard to breathe. That's why he'd moved out to the ranch, away from people. Why he'd stopped going to church, stopped answering calls, stopped pretending he was decent, because he wasn't. He was the man who'd walked away. And now Kate, who'd been violated and blamed and run off by the same kind of cowards who'd let Angelina Ruiz die. Kate was out here somewhere, maybe already gone, and he was about to fail again. The pattern was repeating. The coward was still a coward. I'm sorry, he said to the desert, to Angelina, to Kate, to God, or whoever was listening. I'm so goddamn sorry. The desert didn't answer. He pushed himself up, kept walking. The light-colored thing near the Palo Verde wasn't her. Just a plastic bag, old and sun-bleached, caught in the branches, but he kept looking anyway, because this time, This time, he wouldn't walk away. Even if it was too late, even if she was already gone, even if finding her meant finding a body, he would look until the sun went down, and then he'd come back tomorrow and look again, and he'd keep looking until he found her or died trying, because that's what he should have done 12 years ago. That's what he should have been all along. Not a good man, just a man trying to make one right choice after 10,000 wrong ones. The sun climbed higher, the heat pressed down like a hand, his mouth tasted like copper and dust. He kept walking, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "What if you're too late? What if kindness doesn't matter if it arrives after the dying's done?" He didn't have an answer. He just kept walking. He found her at dawn, 12 miles out on the old mining road, sitting on a rock like she was waiting for the sun to finish what the town had started. The temperature had dropped overnight to 70 degrees. First time it had been below 90 in 2 months. The sky was going from black to gray to that pale blue that comes before real light. Stars still visible in the west. Venus hanging low over the mountains. She was silhouetted against it, small and still, not moving. He cut the engine, got out slow. His legs barely worked. He'd been searching for 16 hours straight, driving every back road and wash from Bellwood to the county line. The sun had gone down, and he'd kept looking with headlights and a flashlight. And when those weren't enough, he'd just driven, hoping. Now here she was, alive, sitting, waiting. "Kate," he called. She didn't turn, didn't run. Just sat there with her arms wrapped around her knees, facing east where the sun was about to break. He walked toward her across the hard pan, boots crunching on caliche, and stopped 20 feet back. Up close, he could see the damage. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her face was burned red, skin peeling at the cheekbones. The long sleeves were torn, one arm scraped raw from wrist to elbow. She'd been walking all night. He could see it in the dust caked to her jeans, the way her shoulders sagged. But she was breathing. She was alive. "You shouldn't have come," she said. Her voice was rough as sand. "I know. I left a note. I read it. Then you know I'm going where I'm supposed to go." And where's that?" She gestured at the desert around them. Empty, endless. Beautiful in a way that would kill you if you loved it too much. "Here," she said. "Where people like me belong." He sat down on the ground, 15 feet from her rock. Close enough to hear, far enough that she wouldn't bolt. The desert was quiet except for a few early birds. Cactus wren, mockingbird, a dove somewhere calling for rain that wouldn't come. They sat in silence while the sky got lighter. Finally he said, "You got any water?" "Ran out yesterday." "How long you been out here?" "Don't know." 2 days, maybe more." She laughed, dry and broken. "Turns out dying's harder than I thought. Kept thinking I'd just stop, but I keep waking up." He pulled a water bottle from his pocket, warm now, but still wet, rolled it across the ground to her feet. She looked at it, didn't pick it up. "I don't want to be saved," she said. "I know. Then why are you here?" "Because I can't walk away." "Why not? Everyone else did." "Tell me what happened," he said. "Not at the bar. After. Tell me what broke you." She was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "It wasn't the assault." He waited. "I mean, it was. It was terrible. It hurt. But I've been hurt before. That's not what—" She stopped. Started again. "It was after, when I went to the police. When they took my statement and looked at me like I was lying. When they talked to Cole and his friends and believed them instead of me." "Because you were drunk." "Yeah, I was drunk. I wore a short dress. I laughed at his jokes. So when he followed me to the bathroom and—" Her voice cracked. "When he did what he did, and I reported it, they said, 'Well, what did you expect?' That's not—" "My mother said it too." The words came out flat, dead. "I went to her house the next day. Bruises on my wrists, my lips split, and she looked at me and said, 'What did you expect, Catherine? Dressed like that, acting like that. You brought this on yourself.'" The sun broke over the ridge. Light poured across the desert, gold and merciless. "So I started believing it," Kate continued. "Started thinking maybe they were right. Maybe I did want it. Maybe I'm just—" She picked up the water bottle, turned it in her hands. "Maybe I'm dirty. Maybe that's why no one believes me. Because they can see it on me. The stain, the thing I can't wash off no matter how hard I try. You ain't dirty. You don't know what I know what they did to you." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "They took what happened to you and made it your fault. They chose his reputation over your truth. And then they convinced you it was right. That's not you being dirty. That's them being cowards." She looked at him finally, eyes red and hollow. "But if nobody believes the truth, then what's the point?" she asked. "If nobody's going to hold him accountable, if the whole town's going to choose him over me, then what's the point of surviving? What's the point of any of it? The point is you're still standing. Barely. Still counts." She drank half the water in one go, then lowered the bottle and stared at the horizon. You said you didn't help someone once. What happened? So he told her. All of it, Tucson, Lucky's bar, Angelina Ruiz, screaming in the parking lot while he stood there and did nothing. The body found the next morning? The autopsy that said she'd lived for hours, crawling toward the road. I walked away, he said. Chose easy over hard, and she died because of it. That's why you helped me. Yeah. So I'm just, what, your second chance? Your way of making up for... No. He looked at her straight. You're a person who needed help, and I'm a person who's done too much walking away. That's all this is. The sun was higher now, starting to bite. A lizard scurried across the rocks between them. I've been punishing myself for 6 months, Kate said quietly, scrubbing my hands raw, staying in that shithole adobe, believing I deserved it. But the thing is, she stopped, swallowed hard. The thing is, I didn't deserve it. None of it. Not what Cole did, not what the town said, not what my own mother, her voice broke. You're right, he said. You didn't. Then why does it still feel true? Because they made it feel true. That's what people do when they're protecting themselves. They make the victim believe it was her fault so they don't have to feel guilty for not helping. She looked down at her hands. The same hands she'd scrubbed raw 100 times, trying to wash away something that was never there. I'm so tired, she whispered. I know. I don't know how to stop hating myself. Neither do I. He stood, walked closer, stopped 5 feet from her rock. But maybe we figure it out together. Maybe that's how it works. She looked up at him. The sun lit her face, showed every crack and burn and tear track. What if I can't go back? She asked. What if I can't face them again? Then we don't go back. We go forward, somewhere else, anywhere else. You'd leave your ranch? Already lost the town. Ranch is just land. He held out his hand. Come on, let's get you out of this heat. She stared at his hand, at the calluses and scars and dirt under the nails, at the offer being made without conditions. After a long moment, she reached out and took it. He pulled her up. She swayed, steadied, stood. They walked back to the truck together while the sun climbed and the temperature rose and the desert went from beautiful to brutal in the space of 10 minutes. Behind them, the rock where she'd been sitting caught the light. Empty now, but she'd been there. She'd waited for dawn instead of walking into darkness. And that, somehow, made all the difference. They drove back to town at sunrise, and by the time they reached the feed store, half of Bellwood was watching. He gave her the rest of the water and stopped at Maria's first. The gas station was still dark, not open yet, but Maria's truck was in back. She must have heard the engine because the door flew open and she was running before Boone had the truck in park. Gracias a Dios, Maria breathed, pulling Kate into her arms. Gracias a Dios. Kate stood stiff in the embrace, then slowly her arms came up and she held on. Boone stayed by the truck while Maria checked her over. The sunburn, the cracked lips, the dehydration. She brought out juice and crackers and made Kate sit on the step and eat while she called someone. A minute later, headlights turned into the lot. A woman Boone didn't recognize climbed out of a sedan, older, maybe 60, with a medical bag. Dr. Reyes, Maria said, from the clinic in Wilcox. She makes house calls. The doctor examined Kate quickly and efficiently. Pulse, temperature, checking for heat stroke. She needs fluids and rest, she said. But she'll be okay. Lucky you found her when you did. After Dr. Reyes left, Maria brought out clothes, clean jeans, a soft t-shirt, new socks. Go inside and change, mija. There's a shower. Kate looked at Boone. What are you going to do? Take you wherever you want to go. I can't stay here. You know that. I know. She stopped. They'll destroy you if you keep helping me. Already did. Maria touched Kate's shoulder. Go shower. We'll figure it out. When Kate was inside, Maria turned to Boone. What's your plan? Don't have one. When you can't keep her at the ranch, Wade will make sure everyone knows. The church, the feed store, they'll cut you off completely. Don't care. Boone, I mean it. I don't care what they do to me. She almost died out there because of them. Because they chose protecting a rapist over believing a victim so they can go to hell. Maria studied him. You're going to lose everything. Already lost what mattered. What's that? My self-respect. Lost it 12 years ago in Tucson. He leaned against the truck. Maybe this is how I get it back. Kate came out 20 minutes later, clean and dressed, her hair wet and combed back. The burns on her face stood out more now, angry red against pale skin. Where to? Boone asked. I don't know. Away. Anywhere away. Phoenix? Tucson? She shook her head. I don't have money. I don't have anything. You got me, Maria said. And you got him. That's something. Boone pushed off the truck. We could go now, right now. Pack up the adobe, load the truck, be in New Mexico by noon. Kate looked at him. You'd really leave? Just like that? Yeah. What about your ranch? Your cattle? I'll sell it. Or let it go. Doesn't matter. It does matter. You can't just, drop me at Maria's, Kate said suddenly. I'll stay there a few days, figure out where to go. You don't have to. No. His voice was firm. Not leaving you here, not after. A truck turned into the lot, then another, then a third. Boone's stomach dropped. Wade's Buick, Dale's pickup, Earl's SUV, and behind them, more vehicles, people heading into town for Saturday morning shopping, church volunteers, setting up for the pancake breakfast, families stopping for gas, all of them slowing down, staring. Wade climbed out of his Buick, saw them, and smiled. Well, he said loud enough to carry. Looks like she came back after all. Must not have wanted to leave you that bad, Boone. People were gathering. Not coming close, but forming a loose semicircle in the parking lot and on the sidewalk, watching. Boone felt Kate move behind him, trying to make herself small. Get in the truck, he said quietly. Boone, get in this truck. She climbed in, closed the door. Through the windshield, he could see her face, pale, terrified. He turned to face Wade and the growing crowd. I think we need to have a conversation, Wade said, walking closer. Man to man, about what's right for this community. More people were arriving. Mrs. Pacheco from the church, the Hutchins family, Dale Porter's wife and kids. They parked, got out, stood watching like this was a show. Boone saw what Wade was doing, making it public, making it a spectacle so everyone would see. So there'd be witnesses to whatever happened next. There's nothing to talk about, Boone said. I think there is. Wade stopped 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, casual and confident. See? You've put us in a difficult position. We're Christian people. We believe in helping those in need. But we also believe in truth, in standing up for the innocent. Then you should be standing up for her. Cole Hadley is innocent. The police investigated. They found no evidence of wrongdoing. They found a drunk girl who'd been raped and decided she was lying. Gasps from the crowd. Someone said language in a scandalized tone. Wade's smile tightened. That's a serious accusation. One you can't prove. Don't need to prove it. She lived it. She was intoxicated. She couldn't keep her story straight. Even her own mother said. Her mother chose protecting the family reputation over her daughter. That don't make her a liar. That makes her a coward. More gasps. Mrs. Brennan was probably in that crowd somewhere, hearing herself called a coward in front of the whole town. Wade's expression hardened. You're making this worse, Boone, for yourself, for her. This town has been good to you. Your family built that ranch 4 generations ago. People respect the Rutherford name. But if you keep this up, if you keep choosing her over us, I'm not choosing her over you. I'm choosing right over wrong. You're choosing a known liar over an upstanding young man whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. His only crime was rape. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Wade's face went red. You have no proof of that. None. Just her word, which we all know is worth more than this whole goddamn town combined. The crowd went silent. Then someone in back, a man's voice, had said, that's slander. You can't just say, I can say the truth. Boone's voice carried across the parking lot. Cole Hadley raped Catherine Brennan in the back room of the Dusty Rose Bar last February. She reported it. The police didn't care because he's got family and money, and she was just a waitress who had 2 beers. This town chose to protect him instead of her. And when she couldn't live with that, when the shame and the blame got too heavy, she walked into the desert to die. That's enough. Wade's voice was sharp now, losing its polish. You're done here, Boone. No, I'm not. He turned to face the crowd. You all know me. Known my family 4 generations. And I'm telling you straight, Cole Hadley is a rapist. Kate Brennan told the truth. And every single person in this town who stayed silent, who blamed her, who called her a liar, you're complicit. Get off my property, Wade said. This is Maria's property. Then get out of my town. Your town? Boone laughed, bitter. This town belongs to cowards. People who'd rather protect a guilty man than believe a victim. People who care more about reputation than truth. So yeah, Wade, I'll leave your town, gladly. Earl stepped forward. You're making a mistake. We built this community on Christian values, on forgiveness, and you built it on silence. Boone cut him off. On making girls like her think they're the problem. On letting boys like Cole do whatever they want because their families have been here long enough that nobody asks questions. My son didn't do anything wrong. A woman pushed through the crowd. Hadley, Cole's mother, face red and furious. He's a good boy. He goes to church. He volunteers. That girl is just bitter because he didn't want anything to do with her after he raped her, Boone finished. Mrs. Hadley gasped like she'd been slapped. Wade held up his hand. Boone Rutherford, you are no longer welcome at First Baptist. Your credit at the feed store is canceled. No one in this town will do business with you. Consider yourself shunned. Good, Boone said. I don't want to do business with people who protect rapists. He turned to walk back to the truck. Wait. Maria stepped forward, stood beside him. If he's shunned, then so am I. Because I believe her too, murmurs through this crowd, then movement and back. The younger woman from the feed store, the one who'd nodded at Kate weeks ago. She walked forward slowly, stopped near Maria. Me too, she said quietly. I believe her. Wade's jaw clenched. Anyone else want to throw away their reputation? Silence. No one else moved. Fine. Wade looked at Boone with cold satisfaction. You made your choice. Live with it. Boone walked to the truck, opened the passenger door. Kate was crying, hands over her mouth. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. You just lost everything because of me. No. He crouched down so he was eye level with her. I just got something back. What? My self-respect. He stood, looked back at the crowd one last time, saw Wade's satisfied smile, saw the turned backs, saw the judgment in their eyes, saw three women standing apart from the rest, Maria, Dr. Reyes, who'd come back, and the young woman from the feed store. Small lights in the darkness. He climbed in the truck, started the engine. Where are we going? Kate asked. Away. He put it in reverse. Anywhere but here. What about your ranch, your cattle? Tommy Vance will buy them, or someone will. Doesn't matter. It does matter. That's your home. Your family's... Kate. He looked at her. 12 years ago, I walked away when I should have stood. Let a woman die because I chose easy over hard. Today, I stood when I could have walked. That's worth more than any ranch. She was crying harder now, but nodded. He backed out of the lot. As they pulled away, Maria raised her hand, not waving goodbye, just acknowledging, bearing witness. He drove through town, slow and deliberate, past the feed store where his credit was canceled, past the church where he'd been shunned, past the diner where men would tell stories about the fool who threw his life away for a lying girl. He didn't look back. In the passenger seat, Kate stared out the window, watching Bellwood disappear behind them. I don't understand, she said finally. Why did you do that? You could have just left quietly. Could have, because someone needed to say it, out loud, in front of everyone. He gripped the steering wheel. You spent 6 months thinking you were the problem, thinking you were dirty, thinking you deserved what happened. I needed them to know, needed you to know, that the problem was never you. And she was quiet for a long time, then so soft he almost didn't hear it. Thank you. He nodded. They drove east toward New Mexico, toward a life neither of them had planned. Behind them, Bellwood sat in its valley, small and righteous and satisfied with its own goodness. Ahead, the road was empty and wide and full of light. 3 weeks later, the monsoons finally came. The rain started just after midnight, not the violent storms that flooded washes and turned roads to mud, but the gentle kind that soaked in deep. By morning, the temperature had dropped to 85, and everything smelled like wet creosote and possibilities. Kate stood on the porch of the adobe, watching it fall. The roof didn't leak anymore. Boone had fixed it the week after they'd come back from New Mexico. They'd driven as far as Albuquerque before she'd asked him to turn around. Not to Bellwood, just back. To the adobe. To the one place that felt like hers. He'd bought it from the bank for $800, repaired the roof, fixed the walls, hung a new door. Then he'd gone back to his ranch to sell the cattle and list the property. Tommy Vance was buying it, offered him half what it was worth, but Boone had taken it anyway. Don't need much, he'd said. Just enough to start over. They weren't together. Not like that. He slept in the bunkhouse at his ranch until it sold. She stayed at the adobe. But he came by most days to work on repairs, and sometimes she made coffee, and they'd sit on this porch in the evening and not talk much. It was enough. She walked inside to the kitchen sink, the one Boone had plumbed properly now, with hot and cold water. On the windowsill, catching the gray morning light, sat the soap, that sliver she'd carried for 6 months, used and scrubbed and worn down to almost nothing. She'd found it in her backpack after the desert, had set it on the sill, meaning to throw it away, but hadn't quite been able to. It had been there 3 weeks now, untouched. She picked it up, turned it in her palm. Smooth and small and harmless, just soap, not a weapon, not a ritual, not a way to punish herself for something that was never her fault, just soap. She walked to the porch and set it on the rail. The rain was still falling, light and steady. She watched it for a moment, this small white thing that had held so much pain, and then she went back inside, left it there in the rain to dissolve. Boone's truck pulled up an hour later. He got out carrying a toolbox and a bag from Maria's, tamales probably, and fresh tortillas. He saw the soap on the rail, glanced at Kate through the window, and kept walking. He set the bag on the kitchen counter, poured himself coffee without asking, and leaned against the sink. "Rain's good," he said. "Yeah." Through the window, she could see the desert changing. Green was starting to show between the creosote. Wildflower seeds that had been waiting for years were germinating. The land was remembering how to live. "You stop using it?" he asked, nodding toward the window. She knew what he meant. 3 days ago. "How's it feel?" "Strange. Keep thinking I should. Keep thinking I need to." She looked at her hands. Red still, from months of scrubbing, but healing. "But I don't." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You were never dirty, Kate. You were just alone." The words landed soft and true. She felt something break open in her chest. Not painful, just opening, like a fist unclenching after holding on too long. She looked at him. He was watching her steady and calm, like he'd said the simplest thing in the world. "I know," she said. And she did, not completely, not perfectly. There were still days she wanted to scrub. Still, nights she woke up feeling Cole's hands in her mother's voice. Still moments she believed the lie. But she was starting to know the truth, starting to see herself the way Boone did, the way Maria did, the way that young woman at the feed store had, when she'd stepped forward. Not dirty, not ruined, not the problem, just alone, and now not anymore. Boone nodded once, didn't push it, and started unpacking the tamales. Outside, the rain washed the soap down to a film, then to nothing. By afternoon, it was gone completely. That evening, they sat on the porch as the sun broke through the clouds. The light was golden and clean, the air cool for the first time in months. In the distance, a hawk circled lazy patterns over the north pasture. Kate's hands rested in her lap, visible, steady, she didn't hide them. Boone sat on the steps, coffee cup balanced on his knee, not saying much, just being. The desert stretched out around them, still harsh, still beautiful, still capable of killing you, if you weren't careful. But green was coming. The land knew how to wait. So did they.